Hello everyone, my name is Loko and welcome to another game of StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. Today we're gonna take a look at a game that I played a couple of days ago. It is a Zerg vs Protoss on Overgrowth Alley. And in this game I decided to go for a Hydralisk Zergling timing push. Now, as you might have already guessed by the title of this video, I'm completely going to wreck my opponent, okay? And it might sound a little bit silly, but this is one of these timing pushes that pretty much everyone can execute because it all comes down to just solid macro and scouting out your opponent. So in this specific game, my opponent goes for a Stargate and I go for a Hydralisk Zergling response that just sort of wins the game outright. And honestly, I think most people will be able to execute this build with some practice. And the nice thing that you can always keep in mind is that you can try this build out for yourself and see how much supply you are at the same amount of time. So we're just gonna watch this game at the normal playing time. So this is actually the speed that the game was played at, and I'm gonna hopefully be able to provide you some commentary about the decisions that I made and at what point I start droning as heavily as I possibly can. So the one thing you can do is go to like the 11-minute mark in this game, try out this exact same playstyle yourself as well, and see how much supply you have at that exact same moment, at the time that I push out. How much supply are you at, and you know, if it's lower than me, how does that happen? Like, why are you having much lower supply? I've noticed this plenty of times whenever I'm like coaching someone. You know, the differences in supply are just too big, and it's always kind of tricky to find out exactly why that is. But if, let's say at the 11-minute mark you have about 20 or 30 less supply than me, something is going wrong in your macro, and you should never be really focusing on unit compositions and your opponent's strategy and scouting and all that, because you're just missing out on a ton of supply. Anyways, went out on a little bit of a rambling right there, but I went for a hatchery first, and I followed it up right there with a spawning pool, sending my first two overlords across the map to find and figure out what my opponent is up to. Now, as we can see on the production tab, turns out my opponent went for a pretty standard gateway expand right there, getting the cybernetic score up really early, and there's yet actually a nexus to be seen that will likely go down right before the 4-ish minute mark, something like that. It's kind of the standard right now for gateway expand timings. So I do decide to actually chase down that scouting probe of his a little bit more than necessary. Reason for that is because I really need to know whether or not he's going for the cannon rush. Yes, I did go for a hatchery first right there, and nope, I do not advise doing it. But sometimes I go on autopilot and make the hatchery first anyway, and it worked out just fine in this game. So I'm gonna go for the double queen follow-up right there as soon as the spawning pool finishes, and I'm starting a couple of Zerglings right now, and I'm gonna use those mostly for scouting. So right now I know, alright, my opponent went for a gateway expo, I see everything that's happening, he's chrono boosting out the mothership core, and I can see the second gas geyser going down, knowing for me that it's gonna be not like an aggressive 4-gate or anything. I saw the chrono boost go down on the nexus, and I also saw the second gas geyser go down, so I know 100% certain right now my opponent will not be able to do any kind of aggressive moves. I instantly decide to take the third base because of this, and I found his scouting probe as well, moving that one across the map right now, so I'm in a pretty good situation right now. Now, I'm still just flying my overlords to like good scouting locations in case my opponent decides to be really greedy. And I really need to be clicking this building right here at the front. What is it, Loko? What is it? I really need to be checking that out shortly, because it is the Stargate going down already. Didn't manage to get that probe right there, but I will very shortly click on that building at the front of his natural wall off, and I should be able to find out what is going on right here. So I'm just hitting my queen injects right now, gonna be droning up no matter what. I actually didn't click the I didn't actually check for the Stargate just yet. That is really poor play. I could have just seen the Stargate perfectly right there. But either way, as soon as I analyze that it is indeed going to be a Stargate, I am going to drone up as greedily as I possibly can. Here's the thing about Stargates, okay? Once a Protoss has committed to Stargates, the only thing that could potentially support off of two bases, is like a Stargate and maybe like 3 gateways early on into the game. Once you realize it is indeed a Stargate, you don't really need to worry very much about anything, because he cannot really do like a robotics timing attack or like a Blink Stalker timing push or anything. So as soon as I analyze it is indeed Stargate, I'm gonna drone up like mad. I'm just gonna make non-stop units right here, and there we go. I do notice that it is indeed a Stargate right now. Gonna start my spore crawlers obviously, just to make sure that I don't get all my drones picked off. Just to be safe. I make 2 in each and every base, but I am droning, which is the most important thing right now. Just getting to my max saturation as soon as possible. Now, normally in Zerg vs Protoss, I go for a roach timing attack. I go for like a +1 attack into roach speed timing attack, and that's been working quite well. But whenever my opponent opens up with a Hydralisk or with a Stargate opener, like my opponent is doing right here, I've found so far doing a similar push, but instead going for Hydralisks is a lot more efficient. So right now I've already decided, I made the Roach Warren, but I've already decided to not do anything with the Roach Warren. I'm starting up my lair, gonna start up an Evo chamber very shortly as well, there we go, and I started up my link speed as well. Now keep in mind, I have a pretty good minimap vision. I got his watchtower on his side of the map, and I can also see if he's taking his third base, so that's the most important thing right now for me. Besides that, as long as he isn't taking a third base, I'm just gonna make drones. Just making as many drones as possible, just getting some creep spread going as well. That could have been a lot better actually, this game didn't really focus on that very much. But the most important thing right now is that you always think about what my opponent could throw at me. Well, it's nothing, so I'm just gonna make drones. Getting my third base saturated as soon as I possibly can, and as soon as my lair finishes, I'm gonna start my Hydralisk then. Now, a normal time for a Protoss player to expand is right between 8 to 9.5-ish minutes. That's normally the time that you see him expand whenever they go for this Stargate opener, and it is exactly where my drone gets, or my Zergling right there gets killed at his base, and it's right around the 9 minutes. So I'm assuming, alright, my opponent is indeed gonna make this expansion very shortly, because what opponent will go for an all-in after like a Stargate opener with Phoenixes, right? It really doesn't happen. So if you want to make Zerglings and Hydralisk, you need 5 gas geysers. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Getting 5 gases up and making a big round of Zerglings right now. Waiting for my Hydralisk then. I am gonna get the ranged upgrade on my Hydralisk right away. But while my Zerglings are building, I'm gonna move them right away across the map. So already setting a rally point across the map, and I'm gonna make sure that I can do some damage right now, alright? So I'm just trying to get him to sit back for as long as possible. Now, the one thing you need to keep in mind when you play versus a Protoss that went for a Stargate opener is that the earliest a Colossus is gonna pop is right around the 11.5 minute mark. So as long as you make sure that you attack before 11.5 minute mark, you shouldn't really be worried about the Colossus at all. So I'm just trying to be a little bit aggressive right here, but I am gonna move across. I do not really want to allow my opponent to sit back for too long, but I know that I'm on a timer, okay? If I actually get there when a Colossus pops, I could very well lose the game outright. So I need to be very careful doing that. I am gonna move, well, I should already be moving right here. It's a slight mistake, losing a couple valuable seconds right here. But I need to make sure that I get there before the Colossus pops. Now, nice timing to keep in mind, 11.5 minutes is when the Colossus will pop. So sometimes, if you get lucky and you get there in a perfect timing, you will be able to pick off the Colossus right when it moves out. So that is something that happens every now and then, and guess what? 11.5 minutes, my opponent is walking the Colossus right there, trying to join it up with his main army, doesn't quite get it, but I deal a lot of damage to it. So right now I am just gonna rally more and more units, getting the muscular augments as well as the forward base up, and I am just rallying across the map. Now, even though I might not seem to have a lot of units right now, my reinforcements are coming in. My opponent is wasting force fields, he is wasting time, and he is going in total panic mode right now. And even though my army wasn't very big, I managed to do a significant amount of damage while also killing off all of his sentries. Now, sentries are units that you don't really want to die as a Protoss player, so here's the other Colossus that pops up. He's trying to chrono boost it out as aggressively as possible, almost getting it right there. Just barely not getting it. But ooh, he's actually being very, very risky, and I might actually be able to get it right here. But while this is all happening, I'm just rallying across the map. I'm not worrying about anything. I got a couple of units eating away at his third base, got a couple of units eating away at his natural, and he decides to GG out. Now, this is probably one of the cleanest victories that I've ever had in Zerg vs Protoss, and it comes to show you that just solid macro will most of the time win you the game as long as you analyze the situation and you just outplay your opponent as soon as you see what is going on. You drone up, you go for the timing attack, and you hit him in the face. So if you have any questions about this at all, make sure you post them right below that like button. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button because you will be the very first one to get a notification when I upload another StarCraft 2 video. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I will see you again in the next video.